Hi, this is Diane again with Phil's Virtual Sewing Club. We're going to continue on with our discovery of some other types of stitches within the Pfaff Quilt Expression 720 machine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get right into it and show you some of the other functionality in this machine. So what I did is I came over to my menu right here, and under the Maxi art stitch, you know, and if you click on this, you're going to see it's in category 6 and subcategory 4, which is the Maxi art stitches. So click on that. Okay, and then select your stitch from here. You still have the opportunity of going up and down, you know, to view some other designs if you so choose. But I'm going to choose this design right there, which is design number 3. Okay, or stitch or pattern number 3, I should say. So right here, again, we have to follow the directions on the screen here, and it's telling us that the design itself is larger than the 9 millimeters, and you can see this little blue line in there, this line and that line. That's the 9 millimeter markings line, okay? And you can see how the stitch is outside of that area. So this stitch is 36 by 60, so and it does require a different foot, which is indicated by the number 8. So we're going to grab hold of the number 8 foot, which is in our case. And here's number 8. And we're going to take off the foot that was on there from before. And snap on. If you notice again, we don't have the IDT cutout back here, so we will not be using the IDT system. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and snap this foot on. Okay. We're going to put our fabric underneath. And here again, it talks about how it should be stabilized because you're using a decorative stitch, and your quality, you know, you want it to be at its peak performance. And so I'm going to lower the presser foot. Okay. Going to raise it up 1 click to get into the hover position, and so I can adjust where my fabric is positioned. Okay, lower it down and click on the stop button. Now one good thing, you know, about this here, using these larger stitches, these Maxi art stitches, the machine has a great ability to maintain the positioning of your foot versus where it goes on the fabric. So I can adjust it ever so slightly, and in some situations, if I were to put this on an actual, on my actual project or my product, garment or wherever it may be, I might want to draw my lines to make sure that my foot stays perpendicular to that line, okay? But you can see how well the machine controls that fabric and how beautifully it lines up from from area to area. I'm going to hit my scissor button so that when it finishes this particular pattern, that the machine will just cut it and stop. It's coming to the end. Cut my threads, and then let's take a peek. That's what that stitch looks like. So I think it did a beautiful job. Here again, the back side. This is just my ending point where it cut the threads. This is how it looks. Okay. Okay, next we're going to show you how you can sequence particular patterns. So we're going to go into fun stitches. And then I'm going to choose my category up here, which, I'm going to choose a house. And in the sequencing field, I can add as many designs or that I want to choose at this point in time. So I'm going to go back over here again, and this time I'm going to add some trees. There, I added a tree. And then I think that's looking good because I want those to be repeated. So I brought in 2 designs, and they're going to do a repeat on each of them. So I'm going to lower my presser foot and go ahead and start stitching. Tap on my scissors so that it'll cut when it gets to the end of the pattern that it's currently sewing. Okay, here's my sequencing. Here I've got my house and my tree, and it keeps repeating it, the house and the tree. Okay, and again the back side of this sample. So it did a really nice job with the sequencing. So you can create a bunch of these, and of course you can always save them into your memory pocket or into your favorites folder, which would be clicking on the heart itself up there. Okay, the next stitch that we're going to work with and work our way around is under the stitch techniques, and I'm going to scroll down until I get to the floating stitches. Under the floating stitches, you've got 10 different opportunities that you can work with. The first one, I'm just going to do the first one, which is a cross. You have the ability then to size it. This one, since it's at 9, you can go smaller, you can go larger, whatever it is. And just remember, whenever your machine or the lettering up here, the numbers turn green, that means that they have been altered, okay, or changed in some fashion. One thing that you can do is make them larger, and I'm going to just make them larger, just to have some fun. And it also changes the density, or not density, the tension settings as well with that, okay? Now with this one, there's multiple different feet that you can utilize with it, okay? And you can use the standard foot, which is the OA foot, okay? But the foot that I'm going to utilize today is called the stitch in the ditch foot, and it works really well with these stitches. And I'll show you, we'll go back to this other foot after we use the stitch in the ditch foot, okay? Just to show you how it helps make sure that everything is even when you're stitching. So I'm going to push down to release the last foot that we used. Okay, and then snap on this foot. And in this situation with this stitch in the ditch foot, it also uses the IDT system. Okay, that's engaged. And we're almost ready to stitch this out, okay? Because it's a fun stitch. It's one of my favorite stitches in this whole machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to fold over our fabric. So you're going to pretend like this is the back side of the fabric. You're going to put a piece of stabilizer under it. You're going to lower your presser foot, and here again we're going to raise this just to the hover position and readjust, and then back down again to make sure that's where we want it to be. Okay, I folded this over, put a piece of stabilizer on the back side. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and hit the start button, And what you're going to do, that center flange that comes down, you're going to ride it right along that fold line. And this stitch stitches out relatively fast, believe it or not. Get close to the end, I hit the scissor button and it'll let the design finish. Right here is our design that we stitched out. Now the next thing is opening it up. You're going to pull open your fabric and look how pretty that looks. Now when you look at this, there's no stitches between each of the elements. Looks like it's floating. Isn't that a great idea? I love this stitch. Okay, so now we're going to go back in there. Let's choose a different one. Let's choose the circles. Okay, I'm going to fold this. Well, let's turn it around and do the opposite side. Okay, so I got several pieces of stabilizer here cut in anticipation that this would happen. So fold it in, and you want your stitches to catch both the fabric and the stabilizer. So we'll make sure it's adjusted properly. Go ahead, start button. To me, this is just like one of the greatest things that any swing manufacturer could come up with. This is a great technique that can be used on blouses. And, you know, you can even piece quilts together with this. Okay, cut it. We open it up and we get to see the magic. Isn't that beautiful? There you go. And so forth. One thing I wanted to show you is a pillow that I created using this stitch. You can see, and it was like one of the other stitches, one of the line stitches, and it was, I believe it was this one right there. Okay? And so I measured, folded, stitched. Measured 2 inches apart, folded, and I stitched, and so forth to create the whole total effect. So it's like awesome. This is, you know, like I said, this is one of the best stitches from my estimation anyway, as to, you know, utilizing these particular stitches. Now another thing I want to show you is how you can piece together, and this is a little bit different technique, but it runs in the same fashion. I'm going to just cut this in half, and I'm going to start piecing together a quilt. So I'm going to take my 2 pieces that I want to utilize, let them placed together. Okay. And in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the standard pressing foot that comes with the machine. This is the standard. And so if you're piecing a quilt together, you're normally going to use a 1/4 of an inch seam. And so what we're going to do is, we still want to stabilize it, and I'm going to use a different stitch. Oops, let's use Let's use the diamonds this time. And of course, you can customize that stitch right here by changing either the length or the width and so forth, and also the tension if you so choose. Okay, but here we have right sides together. We're going to piece a quilt together. Okay, I'm going to get my start button. This is 1/4 inch from the seam, or from the edge. Okay, and then here again, this is how it looks. Gonna open it up, and hopefully you can see that stitch. And there's also the other stitch that connects them that's still intact, so you've got a complete seam all the way down. Okay, and you can continue in this fashion with other strips and so forth. And of course, you have to make sure that you put your stabilizer on the back side, because that stitch is a little heavier and you don't want your fabric to pucker. So you're going to put that behind, and then if you want a different stitch, choose a different stitch. We'll use this one, and you're going to start 1/4 inch from the edge. Make sure everything is square. Okay, and then you're gonna go ahead and put it all together. Here's this stitch. You can see, I just want to point this out, how you have a stitch between each of the elements. Okay, and you open it up. And there you go. Yes, you could use a tearaway stabilizer behind here. I just use cutaway because it's what I had, and so it does a nice job with the cutaway, and it'll do a great job with the tearaway as well. Okay. Back here is the section that I had stitched together using different stitches. I hope you can see that. Okay. On this one I used iron away, or iron on, which is also a tearaway stabilizer. So, but it's a pretty way to make a quilt if you want some, add a little bit more interest to your quilt blocks. The next stitches that we're going to showcase are the ribbon stitches. Okay, that's under the category number 8, and it's the first under the subcategories options, so ribbon. And there again, we're going to choose the first one. Here again, you can adjust the sizing on here as well as the density. So if you plan on using a heavier weight thread, you may want to adjust your density settings, or not your density, your tension, I should say, your tension settings here as well. Okay. We're first going to lower our presser foot, and then with this particular these particular stitch, the ribbon stitches, you would always use the control, the start stop button up here on your screen or on the top board there. Okay. So anyway, we're going to just go ahead and start it going. Now when it stops, it's time to add the ribbon. Okay, so you're adding the ribbon and placing it wherever the gray line is located. The white line is the actual stitch that would be stitched onto the ribbon, okay, or on over the ribbon, and you'll see what I mean. So what we're going to do, it's raised it up. Let's see, and you always should have your needle down, okay, and I'm going to do that now because I didn't do that to begin with. And put your needle down, because what it'll do, it allows you to do the action. And if you need to see any other action that's taken place, or you can't see where that ribbon is placed, raise the presser foot all the way up, okay? That way you can better see what's going on, okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the ribbon, okay? And I'm going to lower my presser foot, right, there we go. And I'm going to start the next action, which is pressing the start button. Okay, after you press the stop button, it stops. You're going to take your ribbon and you're going to kind of fold it at an angle. Okay, folding it at an angle, and what you're doing is, if you need to see this a little better, raise it up, and then you can see right where you place that ribbon, right in front of the needle itself. Then you're going to hit the start button. Okay, the machine stopped. And what you're going to do is make sure that that's right next to the needle. Hit the start sew button. If you're going to do a long line of ribbon stitches, I recommend that when you're doing it, that you, I just wanted to lift that presser foot a little bit higher so I can see. And you always want to kind of make sure that it's folded over and it's a good crease there. Okay, and then you're going to lower. And you should always make sure, you know, that you draw a straight line, because it gives you some point of reference when you're placing your stitches and doing this ribbon function. I'm going to do a couple more of these and you'll see how pretty this looks. It stops again. Make sure it's right up against that needle, and it is. Press the start button. And you're just going to continue on in this fashion until you have the length of ribbon placed that you so desire. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut this at this point just to show it to you and take it out from under the needle. And you can see how that looks. Isn't that pretty? See, now if you hadn't pulled this ribbon nice and tight, or folded it off tight and pulled it right next to the needle, you may have a stitch showing underneath. And it's like, I just barely made this one, but it's pretty good, okay? And so you can continue on in that fashion. And that's really, really pretty. Okay. So next I'm going to show you a double ribbon stitch. And so these are all the doubles, starting with number 7 and downward, and then on this back page is where the triple stitches are, or triple ribbon stitches. But we're gonna stay with the double right now. And so if you have any questions about how to utilize these stitches, what you can do is go into this question mark and tap on that stitch, and it activates, you know, a full description as to how to create that. But once you've read that and you've done a few of these, you're going to find that, wow, that was really easy, you know. But we're going to, oops, that's the wrong one. I didn't mean to choose that one. I'm going to choose number 8, okay, this particular one. So here again, wherever you see the white line, that's where the stitch will be placed. The gray lines, that's where the ribbon will be placed, okay? So we're going to let the, we're going to go ahead with this and sew it out. Remember, always have your needle in the down position. When the machine stops, you place your first ribbon. And I'm going to place it right like that. It's going to go ahead, start the machine, and it does some more stitching. Okay. Okay, then with your second ribbon, go ahead and place it at the next diagonal, such as this. Okay, hold it in place. Go ahead and start the machine. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to flip the yellow ribbon over and making sure it's right up next to that needle. Hit the start button. Then you're going to take the pink and cross over. Okay. Start button. Now you would think you would take that yellow ribbon, but in this situation, you take the pink ribbon, fold it over, cross it right in front of the needle, do the start button. Now you're going to take the yellow, cross over the pink, and start. On the right side is where you're always going to use the same color twice. Okay? Go ahead and start. And grab hold of the pink and flip it over and start. This time you're going to use the pink again. See, it's on the right side. Fold it over in front of that needle. Start it out. Now we're going to do the yellow. Yellow again. We're going to keep on in this fashion until we get to the length that we need where we've applied the ribbon. Or ribbons to it if you're using double ribbons. Okay. You don't have to do a straight line with these either. You can make a curved line if that's the pattern that you wish to apply the ribbon to. Okay, I'm going to just cut it here so that you can have a look at it. Here it is. Isn't that pretty? I love the yellow and the pink together. But you can see how your ribbon is kind of floating, so it's kind of cool. It's very cool. Okay, of course, I'm not going to do the triple ribbon. You can experiment with that one on your own. But I wanted to show you some samples that I had created using the ribbon stitches. Here's double, or I'm sorry, this is the single ribbon. So you can see some of the different possibilities that you can do with the ribbon stitches. Here's additional ones. This one I used same color ribbon, but a different stitch for each of these. And this is the Pfaff double ribbon stitches. Okay. Now, one thing I did, one of the scraps that I had, I stitched out, you know, this particular ribbon stitch, and I thought, wow, I could make a headband out of this for my granddaughter. And so that's what I did with it. I put a piece of elastic on the back side of it, turned it over and put some elastic on, and she's got a beautiful little headband. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you is, you know, I wanted to utilize some of the fills and the decorative fills, the floating stitches, and some of the ribbon capabilities. And so what I did is I put together a little dress here. And the center stitch is one of those maxi stitches that I was telling you, or that we showed. And it does a fabulous job. And then on each side of it, I placed the floating stitches, two rows on each side of it. Okay, here's one floating stitch, and here's the different particular style. So frame that. And here, if you notice, I did a great, not me did a great job, the machine did a great job of doing a top stitch right along that area. And then at the bottom, I finished it off with a double ribbon down here. Okay. And one other thing I want to show you really fast is how, you know, they have a basting stitch that is so different and it's so usable. I just want to show that to you really fast. Okay. Thank you for listening to the video today. I just really love this machine. I can't say that enough. I mean, the stitch quality and the built-in fancy stitches and the ribbon stitches, the floating stitches and the stacking stitches, which we didn't even have time to cover because you know, there's so many features in this machine. But I can't say enough good things about this this Pfaff Quilt Expression 720 machine. So if you have any additional questions, or if you'd like to see other videos on this machine, just let Larry or Annette know at Phil Sewing in beautiful downtown Washington. And until next time.